No, it's no. It's no 10:30, it's 1400. In Council Offices, English Street, Dumfries. Can I remind members that this will be recorded and be available for public listening, and can you make sure your phones are switched off or on airplane mode, just in case something happens during the meeting. Can I ask the Claire to give the Sederunt an apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Wood today. 3 members currently not present. I believe Councillor Carruthers and Councillor Johnston are in the building, so should be here shortly.
Okay, thanks very much. Have we any declarations of interest? No. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 3 then, which is the Crichton Trust Annual Accounts 2016-17. This report provides members with oversight of the 2016-17 annual accounts for the Crichton Trust and its subsidiary, the Crichton Development Company, CDC. The accounts are presented in detail in Appendices 1 and 2. Appendix 3 shows the requested management accounts from April 2017 to November 2017. And any questions that are more suited to the item, item 4 in the agenda will be dealt with at that agenda item. The report provides members with an opportunity to raise any matters with it as felt required further clarification or detail that is required. And I'd like to welcome the Vice Chair of the Crichton Trust, Alistair Marshall, Trust Chief Exec Alex Haswell, and the Treasurer Linda Russell to the meeting. Have you got anything to add to the report, Director?
Nothing to add at this stage. Thank you.
Alex, anything to add to report?
Yes.
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, on the beginning there, the agenda, the Crichton Sub Committee, final Appendix 1, Crichton Trust Annual Report attached, page 3, actually is the development company, Crichton Trust.
Alex?
Yes, Council Charters, it covers the Crichton Development Company, the Crichton Trust and the consolidated account. It's the way the accounts were prepared. CDC's accounts are first. If you go to page number, Linda. Twenty-nine, sorry. The trust accounts start, and the trust accounts include a consolidated account for both CDC and the trust.
But perhaps a clarification of where CDC and the Crichton Trust are at the moment, Alex, might help.
Thank you, sir. You're quite correct, sir. The Crichton Development Company is a wholly owned subsidiary company of the Crichton Trust. If you look at the accounts, you will see that the Trust took a decision last year that they would look to, if not wind down, certainly mothball the Crichton Development Company and assume all responsibilities for the operation of the Crichton through the Trust. We are still required to produce accounts for the Crichton Development Company Limited because it is still in operation, although it is no longer trading other than as part of its process in winding down. A decision needs to be made by the trustees in the near future as to whether they will actually wind up the Crichton Development Company Limited, or if they wish to let it lie dormant as against possible future use should they require a trading company in the future. So the accounts are set out by the Trust's external auditors as required by the accounts rules.
Any other members? Ian?
I suppose it's a Crichton Development Company. Apologies for being late, Jim. I didn't realise our clocks must be the wrong time through there. When I was reading through the report, Crichton Development Company, you just wonder, why is it there? Why is it there?
Alex?
When the Crichton was first bought by Dumfries and Galloway Council, so I didn't want to go right back into history. The Crichton Trust did not exist when the council acquired the Crichton estate. It was acquired through an organisation called Solway Heritage, which some of the members who have been here long enough may remember with some fondness, Solway Heritage was a charitable organisation which was set up to look after the heritage of Dumfries and Galloway. When the Crichton Trust was being established, time ran out in terms of establishing the trust document because it takes a longer time. So CDC was set up to run the buildings and run the estate.
I could have framed my question better, Alec. Since it's been wound up, so to speak, why have you not just got rid of it? What is its meaning now? That's what I try to say. I understand the history fairly well, so I should have worded it better. Why on earth is it there now? What is its function? Why are you even thinking about if there's a future use for it? Fair enough, I think we need to understand what that is, but as it stands, you just look at it and you think, well, there's no purpose for that. Why have you not just finished it? Unless there's something underlying that's necessary that keeps it there.
Absolutely nothing underlying. The trustees took the decision that they would assume responsibility for all of the trading operations. The trading company is no longer required. They are in the course, or were in the course of winding it up. The winding up process takes time. There are bank account details to change, all the utility bills. There was a plethora of administrative work had to be done. As a consequence, the accounting year ran through into 2016-17, so we need to produce accounts because the company was operating insofar as was required for it to be wound up. It's currently no longer operating. All the operations go through the trust. The trustees will now be faced with a decision, since it's just there, do they wish to wind it up, which is an administrative exercise, or do they wish to keep it as a dormant company, which is quite in order for them to do legally in the event that is required in future. There may be some changes in the law or something like that in the future, which might mean that we had to go back to trading companies. The trustees will have to make that decision. There are a number of areas to be looked at there. If they've wound it up, it cannot trade, but they've still got to produce administrative accounts every year. If it lies dormant, accounts would need to be produced. If it's wound up, there'll be no further reference to accounts for the Crichton Development Company Limited.
Alistair, do you want to come on?
I think Alex pretty much explained it, but it wouldn't be all that difficult just to have it sitting there as a dormant company. It's not going to really make any difference to the trading of the Crichton Trust. And if at some future time we needed some sort of commercial subsidiary for it to be sitting there ready to go, it seems sensible to have it there rather than to wind everything up and then having to kick it back and and start it up again.
Jane, you want to come in?
Thank you very much. It's on page 63, which is Appendix 3, and I just wondered if you could possibly explain to me about the expenses recharged line, and what was budgeted and then what actually happened.
Yeah, I think that's cancelled out by other income. So you see that other income is up by over 100,000, and it was it's a bit of an accounting technicality. It was something that was bought and then had to go back through again. So the two things actually cancel each other out.
Malcolm?
Thank you, Chair. It's just on the back of what was mentioned earlier about the development company. And it says in note 12 that you were due to transfer the funds out by the 31st of March of this year. Has that been done?
The answer to that's in the affirmative, sir.
Okay, any other members? Can we... Oh, sorry, John.
Yeah, just carrying on with the Crichton Development Company. I'm kind of like what Councillor Carruthers is. If the company's not really needed, why is it there? I mean, is there some kind of financial implement to the trust in keeping this company going? Because I see that a number of the directors who were on the development company are also on the trust. So is there any sort of financial implication there?
Absolutely no financial implication, sir. The original intention was that the CDC would be wound up. There was a suggestion from an accountant that it might be beneficial just to leave it dormant, not operating at all, because that would save you the cost of setting up a new company if at some time in the future you felt you required a company. The trust, if CDC remains in existence, the accounts produced next year will be very bland and have nil, nil, nil.
I think the other thing just to bear in mind on that is that, you know, we're a charity, but we're also a commercial trading arm. And so while it's fine at the moment, the way it is set up as a trust and all together, in the future there's no guarantee that we might not have to separate things out again if they change the rules.
John, then Malcolm.
Well, I still have a problem with this because at a time when the CDC was bankrupt, and clearly bankrupt, as we can see,
John,
in these documents here, and all the money was then transferred.
The CDC was not bankrupt. I'd like you to retract that statement, please.
I can read a set of accounts. I can read a section of accounts and what money they had.
Can I ask you to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Charteris, you have to withdraw that statement. There's nobody here that's bankrupt.
I'll withdraw the statement. When the Crichton Development Company had run out of money and needed to be wound up, the money, such money there was, the assets were transferred then out of the Crichton Development Company and into its parent body. Now that can be done, but the fact of the matter is you're then left with a Crichton Development Company which has no money. It has directors who are still receiving remuneration while this is going on. One director was still receiving remuneration. It's written in the accounts that there was there. And also, we then have a company which, with no assets, is remaining being accounted for. This company needs to be wound up and got rid of, and the writing's been on the wall for it for 6 months.
Sir, can I maybe just give absolute clarity here? Crichton Development Company had a director up until the end of September last year. If you look at the line in the accounts, when Crichton Development Company when the Trust took the view that it wanted to wind up Crichton Development Company ceased to have a director on remuneration. So that director's remuneration is no longer included in the accounts. I hear what the council is saying, sir, loud and clear about winding up Crichton Development Company Limited in its entirety, and you may be assured that the Trust Board will be advised of the council's view in this respect when it comes to discuss this matter in April. Can I just be absolutely clear? The Crichton Development Company ceased trading because the Trust determined that it wished to wind it up.
Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. It's just there seems to be quite a large pension deficit, particularly in relation to the number of staff. How is this calculated? Is it a portion of the deficit potentially from the council pension scheme, or is it all of your own making? The pension deficit, or the liability for the pension deficit, is a considerable factor insofar as the Trust's accounts are concerned. The Trust participates in Dumfries and Galloway Council's pension scheme. It has done since 1996. The deficit, the liability was calculated by the Council's actuaries in April the year before, last year, and that's what we've got to include in the accounts. I'm bound to say that if we are called on to pay our liabilities out on the council's pension scheme, I'll leave it to your council officers to advise you what the implications are for the council.
Jan, I wonder if you maybe can come in and put some clarification on, because you've had a look at the actual reports and things like that. I just wonder if you can come and have some clarification on where you see things are at the moment.
Thank you, Chair. I've looked at the accounts, and I've also shared the accounts with the finance manager of the council. The biggest liability, which is written in the account in the document, is about the pension, but The pension is the same type of issue that we have as a council, as many organisations have. The likelihood of a payout of all pensions in that particular financial year is about as likely as it would be for the council itself or any employer who manages a pension. And it is very rare in this day and age to have pensions that are in surplus. Most of them are in a similar situation. When we've looked at the accounts, and I'm going to take this a little bit further, there are some elements that the Trust could consider, and they're written in the document, but they could consider bringing in the asset value, full asset value that it has in the properties that it has. It's been very conservative by not doing that. It also can consider undertaking a review of the way it depreciates its assets, looking at the way it yet again has been extremely conservative in its manner of doing so. Now, I've had this discussion with the chief executive and with the accountant. They will consider this. But in a word, I would say that the Crichton Trust has been extremely conservative in the manner that they've cared for the funds, that they've cared for the work that they're doing, which is mainly focusing on the properties, which is what their role is. In the documentation, it does talk about the challenges, and this is why, and it was discussed with the chief executive, and this is why you do have it, and that's Appendix 3, is how is the Trust getting on? And it has looked very carefully at its portfolio of work. So it has seen that the property side is very strong, and they do well in it, and they understand it, and they're able to match their expenditure to the property work. The area of challenge for them on going outwards is really looking at the lost leaders. Now, one really isn't a lost leader because it is such an asset to Dumfries, to the region, and to the south of Scotland as a whole. And that is Easterbrook Hall. That is something that is used and enjoyed by people. And this is something that they're looking at to see how they can refine that to make sure they're getting better value and using it as well as they can. The other part of it is to work very hard to make certain any other lost leaders that they can have, they can bring together well. So looking at that as a whole and looking at where they have been to where they wish to be, which they'll discuss in the next paper, we were satisfied that the year-end balance day adjustments were not the issue that they could have been. They're mainly due to being extremely conservative in the manner of presenting accounts, not just to the Trust Board, not just to ourselves, but to its auditors. And the key part is that the auditors gave them an audit report that is not tagged, but it's a clear audit report. And for the satisfaction of any reader of these audits, that should provide satisfaction.
Thanks very much, Rob.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'd like advice on whether we run the risk of exceeding our authority here. It strikes me that the future of or disposal of the Crichton Development Company is a matter for the Trust, not for this committee. It appears to me that the Trust took a decision to consolidate it in the first place, which would appear to me to be reasonable. They seem to then the process has taken longer than one financial year, which I suspect is sometimes inevitable, and they will wish to consider whether or not there is any utility in them keeping it as a dormant company or not. I don't myself have a view on the matter. I think that's entirely a matter for the Trust and its trustees in fulfilling their obligations. But I mean, if I've understood it wrong, I'm happy to be corrected. But otherwise, I think we need to be slightly careful about A, exceeding our authority, and B, communicating to the Trust a message which I'm not entirely sure I share. I think it's up to them.
I would agree with that as well. Malcolm, did you want to come back in?
Thanks for that clarification about the pension thing. My question really was just, was it part of the council scheme? No, I just wanted a bit of clarity on that. And Jan, I'm 100% confident that these accounts are prepared properly. Don't for 1 minute think that I'm sitting here questioning someone's ability to prepare a set of accounts, which I quite clearly am not. And also, again, I would agree with Rob, when it comes to the dormant company, I don't really see it as being a big problem. The only problem I could have seen with it was sitting there with nearly £120,000 in it doing nothing. I take it all you're going to incur is a small annual accounts fee, which will not really amount to very much, just to keep the thing going in your normal company's house expenditure. It is relatively straightforward. And when it comes to depreciation, I read your depreciation policy. Straight line depreciation on a lot of your assets is a very savage way of going. Some of them, to me, looked like they could vehicles. I would normally put vehicles on a reduce and balance basis. I don't know how I would even begin to calculate how to depreciate a statue. It's something that I never came across. I would have thought depreciation on that should be round about zero, to be honest. But that's just that was just clarifying my position. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Okay, members, can we go to John? You want to come back in?
Yes, it was a remark which Rob made there, which people seem to agree with, that this subcommittee should not be querying the activities of the Crichton Development Company and the Crichton Trust. If that's what he actually meant, what I'd like to ask is what we're actually doing in a Crichton subcommittee.
I don't think Rob was actually saying that. I think Rob was saying that we shouldn't be making decisions on behalf of the trust, as opposed to, having the challenges that the trust will answer by the subcommittee. But Rob, do you want to come back?
Just because the inference has been drawn, I'm quite clear that we're here to scrutinise that. I think in the main we have done so. There have been perhaps some unfortunate statements on the basis of that, but in the main we have scrutinised. I do not believe it's our job to instruct the trust about what they should and shouldn't do with a company.
Okay, well, that clarifies it. Can we go to the recommendations in? 2.1 is asked to note. We've asked to note 2.2, note 2.3, note 2.4, and consider any aspects in 2.5 of the report to be referred to the Crichton Trust for further clarification, and note the proposed meeting schedule to gauge progress as described in 3.5, which is the quarterly meetings of May, September, December, February. Can we agree with that? Thank you. Okay, we're now going to item number 4, which is the Crichton Trust. The report provides members with an overview of the Trust business activities from the 1st of April 2017 to date. The report provides members with an opportunity to raise any matters which it felt requires further clarification or detail. And the Director, the Trust Chief Executive and Trust Vice Chair will take any questions on the report unless you wish to add anything to it, Director.
Nothing to add, Chair, thank you.
Alex?
Nothing to add, Chairman. Very happy to answer questions.
Alistair? Okay. Members, any questions? Jane?
Just really about the marketing. I saw in the action plans to be marketing as a whole, I think. Is that right? And, that the very last thing on page 72 is to be a relaunch communications and a marketing plan. Is that going to include the at the moment loss-making Neuros, which I think is an excellent facility, but nobody knows about it. That's the problem. So I wonder if we could have a little bit of clarification there. That's my observation as somebody who looks to go out but forgets entirely about Neuros.
Yeah. I can confirm that it definitely will include Neuros, and that we have Claire Isabel working for us at the moment, Caroline Bell.
John, and then Ian. Ian, did you want to come in there? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. On page 72, where you've got the provision of green outside gym, which you're doing a part run, I believe that's already started, because I'm sure I've seen something on Facebook, although you're saying that it'll start in the summer. Is that right?
Sorry, that's maybe the way of setting out the report's not clear. I apologise for that, sir. We agreed that we would look at a green gym. We've costed the green gym. We're looking for a location for it. One of the issues in providing the green gym is to encourage the number of people who are locals or indeed visitors who come onto the estate The reference to the park run is that perhaps I was a bit euphoric. We had our first park run in early January in the snow, and we had 375 people participating, which I understand is the biggest ever first participation in Scotland. That's my understanding, sir.
Okay, Ian?
Thanks, Chair. I think, just looking at this, 92% occupancy, which is fantastic. You're right, so you've got a good income coming in every year. Over 3 million, I think, is what it's saying here. And you've got your proposals at the back, the type of things you want to do and adjust. So, I mean, when I looked at some of them, I thought, how does that kind of square up with keeping the books balanced, the return on investment, so on and so forth? For instance, the Crichton Memorial Church, you can see there's a large investment proposed there in a couple of years' time. Does that eat in, or does that eat into your reserves? The estate water supply as well, I thought, well, that's a 30k liability, is it? Or why would you want to take that off? Why would be your ambition to take the estate water supply, the artesian water well, I think it refers to? Why would you want in that in real terms? I think there's stuff there, and the redevelopment of the greenhouses as well, up to a £800,000 project. Now, we've not been on site, we've had a look, but I think it's appropriate these questions are asked, because when you look at your income against your expenditure, and obviously the question is in your return on investment of these type of investments, how does that square up over the next few years? Will you be able to balance your books?
I think the councillor has identified a number of issues which the Trust are actually wrestling with at the moment, sir. If I can deal with the church and the greenhouses, historically they were projects which the Trust was going to undertake, or at least CDC was going to undertake. The Trust is currently looking at its property strategy, and one of the areas it's looking at is how can it maximise its income. I hesitate to use the words sweat the asset, but how can it maximise its income? It will be reviewing this business plan in April of this year. The intention would be, the Trust is now looking at a strategy, a property strategy, which it's never had in the past. That property strategy is likely to, and without committing the Trust in any way, because I can't, is likely to focus on existing buildings which require to be brought up to a standard whereby they can be let, to do exactly what the councillor has said, is maximise the income. At the same time, we are still seeking grants from external bodies to undertake the work on the church and the greenhouses. The church in particular, we need to make sure that it remains in a condition which means it's not going to fall down. It is the most fantastic asset on the estate, and we've got to, sometimes you've got to do more than just running maintenance, so that is in it. In terms of the water supply, we have little alternative. The water supply is currently from an artesian well, which is next to Crichton Hall, which is in the ownership of Dumfries and Galloway, NHS Dumfries and Galloway. The intention is that if NHS, they're not a water company, they keep on telling us we don't want to run your water supply, which is private. There have been a number of studies done as to how best to supply the water to the estate. We are currently looking at acquiring through the council the well and all of the infrastructure, which appears from the feasibility studies which have been done to be the cheapest way of continuing to provide a water supply to the estate. We can't afford for that water supply not to supply the estate. If that makes sense, sir.
I can understand. I just, if try and get Scottish water, I think to put in a water supply, I could imagine how much that would cost, so on and so forth. So, no, I understand that. So, I mean, I suppose depends on many other people want to come in. I wonder if we could, depend on another question, maybe come back, but obviously you've got a new chief executive, that's not been, probably worth saying a few words about that if that's possible, get and understand who this new person is. And I think just with we sit in the a few of us sit in the pension committee, and 92% rate of occupancy with your buildings is phenomenally high compared to your average portfolio investment across probably international, worldwide actually. So I just think that because your state of your finances, it's just my view that I think maybe a couple of years, just in order to get your reserves up would be a good idea. But it's for you, come back to the points that I made earlier, it's for you to consider that. For sitting on the trust and on the subcommittee here, that certainly would be my perception. Get your money built up, then you can look at investing properly.
Alistair?
Yeah, no, I think I agree exactly where you're coming from. And, you know, if you look at the property portfolio, it is performing very well. And you'll see that we have been investing, you know, the building costs and site costs have gone up slightly. That's because we're trying to bring as much of this property back into usage as we can. So we're focusing on all aspects, but that's one of the things that we know that we're going to get some return on. And I don't think that we will be pushing ahead with some of these projects if we don't think we can finance them.
Can I ask a question on the the modern apprentice? Obviously, you've 4 trainees were appointed, 2 remain in post, and there's further recruitment to be undertaken. Can you tell us where you are with that at the moment, please?
We've been very successful. We employed 2 modern apprentices in horticulture with our gardeners. They're working very successfully, and there may be potential for one or both of those people once the modern apprenticeship concludes. We brought in some modern apprentices on the catering side of things. Unfortunately, they didn't work out the way we would like them to work out. We're currently in discussions with DWP and the Chamber of Commerce to look at how we go forward with 2 further apprenticeships. I think the committee and trustees have highlighted issues in relation to the hospitality provision, and that's something that we need to address at the same time, so that we're not bringing someone in to something that's not going to come to fruition at the end of the day.
John?
It's just to go about the greenhouses. What's the progress in them? It just seems to have been going on for years, and taking out the studies, etc. And we even had the suggestion for one councillor that was on the trust to ship them to Africa. I just wonder what the position is now.
About 8 years ago, the trust took the view that they should demolish the greenhouses. They're not permitted to demolish the greenhouses because of their listing. They have unfortunately lain since then. We are looking and looked at the possibility of building a social enterprise around the greenhouses, because it was a social enterprise when it was a lunatic asylum. I mean, that's a statement. It's in the books. Unfortunately, there is a considerable amount of money involved, and pulling all the partners together has proved very difficult. Following on Councillor Carruthers' point, the advice I got recently was put tarpaulins over them and leave them for 5 years, and then go back to it once you've built up your property portfolio. So this is something that the Trust are going to have to address in the coming months.
I'm wondering, Alex, if there's an opportunity here. I just had an email from the Veterans Garden Project at Carnsalloch, and they have been advised that the owner of the garden is going to be taking his land to auction. So they may be, getting kicked out basically of the garden project. And I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity we can discuss maybe and see if there's an opportunity for funding for LIBOR or something like that.
Absolutely, Chairman. We'd be very happy to discuss that.
Okay. John?
I just want to make one point about this water supply. It was all about, the answer was all about the Crichton getting it. As you know, there are quite a number of houses and private houses surrounding the Crichton who depend on this water supply because they don't have it from Scottish Water. And so when the deliberations are taking place, we will have to bring on those people because they will have no water if the water supply is cut off. So they've been looked after for hundreds of years by the Crichton and would expect to carry on because nobody else is going to do it.
We're well aware of those properties, sir, and they will continue to be looked after by the Crichton. We would not cut the water supply off anyone. A number of the properties you're referring to have managed to get onto a Scottish Water supply because we've been doing some work in the background to investigate that, but these properties are included in the Crichton's plan and the Crichton Trust plans for taking this forward.
Jeff and Malcolm.
It's just the biomass boiler. The initial outcome of the feasibility study was inconclusive. Could I have a bit more information about that? I mean, is the current boiler on its last legs effectively? That's why we're looking into, or you're looking at a biomass.
Most of the boilers are not on their last legs. Each of the individual buildings has its own boilers, which are operated through gas. There are issues in some of the buildings where the boilers are ending nearing the end of their useful life. We are replacing boilers on an ongoing basis, and you'll see in the accounts there's reference to repairs and maintenance, and one of the figures, the bigger figures, is for a boiler for, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the house, I think it's Kindar. So we are replacing the boilers. The idea was to look at a cost-saving exercise and provide a biomass which would serve more particularly, I think it was Easterbrook Hall, Neuros and Grierson and the church, which would have considerable cost savings over a period of time. We had discussions with financiers and boiler suppliers, and it was just, the situation was coming to the position where we did not think that it was going to be totally financially viable to do that. It is not forgotten about. We will go down a different route and have a look at alternative sources of energy. And in fact, when I had a walk around the estate with the chairman and a number of members of this committee last year, there were discussions about possible alternative energy sources, and we will take those up with the council.
Malcolm.
Thanks, Chair. It's just to go back to the basic principles of the business. Your core business is your property business, which seems to be going along quite well. You've got the 92% occupancy. I wonder what percentage of that potentially is council involvement. But in most businesses, concentrating on your core business is the best thing to do. And you're projecting a £290,000 loss between Neuros and the Easterbrook Hall. Have you got some kind of timescale for when you're going to draw a line under that, or are you looking at alternative means of running it, or what's going to happen? Because £290,000 a year is a big hit every year, really. And if you're going to lose that, you'd be better off investing. If you want to spend £290,000, you'd be better investing it in some of your properties and getting a better return on it, really.
Yeah, I mean, the trustees are very aware of the fact that the hospitality side of the business is not performing the way we'd like to. I think since we wound up CDC, it has highlighted, because we're actually assigning cost to cost centres that weren't being properly assigned before. So it's actually highlighted the losses on the hospitality side. We're in the middle of doing a very, very deep base sort of budget review of exactly what's happening, and fixed costs are looking pretty high, to say the least. And, you know, we're not going to leave this for too long before we decide, and before we'd make some pretty difficult decisions as to way forward. We're going to have an options appraisal as to what the options actually are. I think it would be very difficult for us to be looking to closing anything actually down, but there are obviously other ways of operating the facilities that we could certainly look at.
Ian?
Just a quick one with everybody else getting it, unless Alex wanted to follow up on that.
It was just to confirm that we, as of the end of June of the current year, the council will be the tenant of only one building on the estate. They are moving off the estate from Carmont House. They remain, and I'm pleased to say they've taken out a fairly long lease off Monraith House.
Ian?
I just wonder if we'll get the chance to see the property strategy at some point. We considered future agendas, and I think will this also have to say, will this be your last meeting here, Mr. Haswell?
Yes, you will get seeing the property strategy when we've got it in place. We're currently in discussions with Scottish Enterprise to see if we can get some funding or some assistance with preparing a strategy. Yes, sir, this will be my last meeting. Probably my last visit to this building.
Never say never, because Alex always pops up every now and again when you see him in the wider, you know, back to life. Any other questions? Okay, can we go to the recommendations then? Members are asked to review 2.1, review and comment on the work trust as detailed in section 3. And 2.2, note the progress on the implementation of immediate priority projects contained within the business plan in the appendix. We're happy with those recommendations. I think just to add for one more, Alex, can we wish you all the best in the future, whatever it is you actually do, and I'm sure we will meet sometime, whether it be in Stranraer, in a place where we imbibe on a few things, or certainly some of the other things that are going on across there. So thanks very much for taking the Crichton forward in the way that you did. Thank you. Members, I have no other business. Thanks very much for attending, and I'll see you at the next one.